Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you're tuning in from here on this beautiful Friday. Thank you for joining us for match day 13 of the LJL. I'm Ifnit Dodge, joined by the ever amazing Kashka and Recollect. Boys, how are we feeling ahead of these banger games we've got today?
I'm just ready. Come on, V3 win. It's gonna happen today. Like I will not be able to take it anymore. But
Oh,
honestly, it's gonna be banger either way.
nice,
Yeah, I
nice.
mean,
Recollect.
I, I'm down for V3 win as well, to be honest with you. It's one of those where if they're going to get a win, it has to be today, doesn't it? It's just got that feeling because the last time these guys met, it was the biggest steal of a game I have seen in a very, very long time.
Oh, don't remind us, mate. Don't remind us. Yeah, we will. We'll get down into breaking up our first big exciting match here, which will be V3 and Crest Gaming. But before we do focus in on what I think both of you have identified here as a big opportunity for V3, let's just talk about the state of the league in general as we're approaching the end of this second round robin here and where things sort of stand. As we do get a look at the standings here, it's Sengaku and DFM still continuing to lead the pack, but SoftBank Hawks, I feel like, gentlemen, have really been our big surprise of the summer as opposed to where they were in spring. Any thoughts on how things are shaking out here as we're nearly two-thirds of the way through?
I mean, I do want to touch on the Hawks. Definitely a bit of a surprise to see them securely in third place. But when you look at how people kind of rated them going into it, a lot of people agree that they are maybe a fourth place team. And with Rascal Jester dropping the ball, I think if you account for that, the table has kind of shaped up as expected.
Hmm.
Yeah. Having said that, though, I do feel like Roscoe Jester in their last performance against CGA, so we'll get a good measuring point, I think, for this game in terms of where that's related. But I think they had a really good performance against CGA. They really stepped up
Mm-hmm.
to where people were, mentioning this team could potentially, or rather where they should be. There's always the idea that hey, Roscoe Jester is scaling. Don't worry, guys, it's coming. But I think Soul and Secret really stepped up in that series, and I'm quietly concerned that if the Hawks can't maintain, they might end up dropping down over the next couple of days.
Yeah, it's definitely a concern that is apparent, especially as we see Rascal Jester, after a pretty rough start, steadily clawing their way up there in that tied fourth position right now with Burning Core. So definitely something to look out for. They were our second place team going into the end of last split into playoffs, finished third. But here is the match schedule for the day, so we can get all of these litmus tests and barometers and whatever other battery of tests you want to assign to these games out of the way, see where things do shake up. We have V3 versus Crest Gaming in game number one, and let's focus in on that a little bit more now because I do know both of you have a lot of opinions here about how this might be V3's best chance to shine for the rest of the split. Recollect, you want to start us off here?
Yeah, so it's one of those where I think that if V3 are going to pick up a win, it's going to be like now's a great opportunity for two reasons, right? Number one, we've seen the fact that this is a CGA roster that hasn't looked great over the last two games that we have seen. It has been the Cocoon pivot into the mid lane. Obviously, Nemo also out for Primo. So it's been a bit of a tough time, I think, having these academy guys adjust to the main stage, which is something the V3 can also tell you a little bit about. It's a tough transition. But this is a team where essentially the dynamic of comfort isn't entirely there. Their early game is quite frankly abysmal, which is where V3 tends to shine the most. If they're able to accrue a big early game lead, which frankly this is a team you could do it against, there's even V3 might not be able to throw some of the games.
Yeah, and it's very much a possibility here. Now, Kashka, we did see in the first time these teams met this split as well, and this was the full strength CGA, so to speak, with these full starting five. It was one of the most wild games we've seen. Do you think that influences the mentals or what we could look for in this matchup coming in today?
I hope that for the sake of V3 that they're going to be looking back at this match and saying, right, we already had a decent mid game against this team. We can do it again. When it comes to CGA, it's more about smoothing out their bumps along the road in the mid split. They, have been inconsistent. And this is a game that kind of puts that all into one spot. what I do want to see from V3 is that same kind of mentality that they had that game, because at the beginning of the split, they were probably one of the best early game teams, and they were actually proactive. They did a lot of good stuff. It's just sometimes, like in this game, they would happen to throw it in the late game. And if they can bring back that same kind of mentality today with a draft that facilitates it, maybe go back to the Swain and things like that. Sure, V3, like just look at this game and see, like, yeah, we can do it again, minus the throw.
Yeah, it would be a very nice adaptation to see coming through from V3. And for those who don't remember, that first game of the round robin was an absolute heartbreaker for V3. Classic Dignitas Baron allowed can't guarantee anything over there to actually land heads up on that side of the coin that allowed them to take that game. So if you're a V3 fan at home, hoping for them to avert the let's see, can I do math? 0-21 for the second split in a row, right?
0 and
7
too many.
games, triple round robin.
Yeah.
0 and too many. That's a good one. Yeah, this might be one of V3's best shots here to bring it on home. As we have coined this, we have a new descriptor. It's not the match of the week, gentlemen. It's the match of the week.
Yeah, shout out to Middlecourt, shout out to J-Real. Have fun, you guys, tooling it out. These teams have looked abysmal, and there's no point in saying otherwise. I think that CGA has been a bit of a V3. I'd say this was somewhat expected, but I also think that they've had some opportunities to pick up wins. So I think that this team could easily be 2-10. I think that's not a stretch. The Axis and CGA games being the ones that I think should have been their wins. CGA, on the other hand, they've had quite a lot of these games where it feels like maybe they could have stolen 1 or 2 more, but they've really the games that they've lost, they have lost. There have been reasons for it, and I think that this team is definitely, in fact, one of those stolen wins. So we could be looking at a 3-9 versus 2-10 team playing essentially here, and I don't think people would be that shocked about it. It's definitely a scrap at the bottom, and whilst I think the Axis is potentially also around this level, it's one where I feel like it's a weakened CGA versus a V3 coming off of confidence, perhaps, in their matchup against Sengoku. They've got Hopium. The question is, are they able to copium with the pressure?
Yeah, it's something we are going to have to look out for. It's what, it's fine. We'll take it. It's early morning for all of us, and you know what? It's not a bad descriptor of the situation. They have to find something to fight for here, do V3. But one thing that sort of concerns me here, Kashka, at least with the way these teams match up, is even though this is CGA, who have been maddeningly inconsistent, as we all love to note over and over again, and they are on a weaker version of the lineup than they normally do front, they do still have the man himself. They've got Hybrid right down in that bot lane, and that's really all you need. Is Dress Code going to be able to stand up and match him in this game? Because I feel like continuously he's been this weak link here for V3.
Yeah, it's something that we definitely have to address. Dress Code not looking great. To be honest, I think almost every AD carry, if not every AD carry in LJL, can just consistently say, yeah, I can perform better than him. And Hybrid is someone who CGA have relied on in the past to pull them through the games. Yes, we've gone a lot about how this is V3's potential game to win, but they still, let's be honest, aren't likely to win this game. You look at any single match in the LJL and you won't be putting your money on the V3. And for CGA, I feel like this is their opportunity to put their to put themselves together, kind of, and maybe make the rookies shine through. And especially bot lane is the potential lane to do that through.
Yeah, it could be a big boon for them. And in terms of the standings as well, it's really important in separating themselves. They're in a tie for that last playoff place right now with Axis. And neither of them are the most consistent teams, so every win counts. And you do not want to be the team here that drops a game to V3 and allows them to break that undefeated streak and lose your spot in playoffs through matchup score just off of that. So definitely worst case scenario. CGA, lots of pressure, but they should have the tools to succeed here. And as we are just waiting for draft to roll on around for game number 1. Oh, I hear that it is up. Gentlemen, take it away. I will see you after game 1. Enjoy our match of the week.
Well, I certainly will, and let's get on to the picks and bans with V3 taking the blue side and CJ on the red side. Swain is going to be already banned away from V3, and 2 AD carry bans coming in against CGA.
The PTSD is inbound. As soon as I saw the Swain ban, it's like, well, they're playing Olaf again, I guess. Because the last time these guys met, that Swain pick was humongous for Yu-Gi-Oh! Was able to zone out multiple members in multiple fights, and it's something that I imagine CGA are going to be having nightmares for years to come. That a little bit of pain coming through. Crucially, by the way, Kakun is going to be playing as well as Primo, so it is that amateur Team 2v2, which is kind of what I think V3 were hoping for, and I wonder how well Kassin will be able to pilot in the jungle, because the last time around looked really good in those early stages, but there wasn't really enough support through the rest of the team to help work through that one, and I wonder now if V3 can play off of that. There is the Renata open, but so is the Zeri pick, has been gigantic, as well as a potential flex to that mid lane role, so I wouldn't be too surprised to see that one come through.
Especially with the amount of bans going towards the AD carry role. Zeri, one of the strong picks remaining at the top, and it is going to be locked in, going towards dress code. Strong pickup, but we're not really expecting it to be the kind of game maker for V3.
Yeah, potentially not, but there are options along the lines of things like this Zeri and the Yuumi combination, or you can go to the Zeri Renata, try and get Primo onto something where they have to be the more active playmaker of the laning phase, because it's something that realistically as a player hasn't really suited them fantastically well. Some of the engages are great, a lot of them not so much, so perhaps forcing them into that more aggressive side of the laning phase might be fortuitous for the side of V3. Only issue is that roaming champion of Talia from the mid lane may go towards that bottom side to influence that matchup, but you can just jump over that wall as long as you don't get stealth stunned, shall we say, on the rocks.
Yeah, and with that we've got the Aphelios picked up for a hybrid. So yeah, honestly, go bot lane, get the Aphelios fed, kind of the elements of a win condition starting to be picked up here by CGA in those first two picks.
I'm a little bit surprised though, because dress code has pivoted very hard onto the Aphelios, so perhaps influence, should we say, onto how strong this Zeri pick is that they want to 100% guarantee that instead. But with 5 picks up of it, it's definitely the comfort selection. But yeah, this Yuumi does come through. Zeri Yuumi, a very oppressive bot 2v2. There's not a lot you can play into this that feels good. I actually think that the Renata matchup isn't fantastic into it, because once you do get to that late game stage, Zeri just runs around, doesn't care about your ulti, because obviously even if she gets hit, she doesn't really have to care, and she's still got cleanse most of the time anyway. And combine that with the Gnar, and you've got yourself a very safe core, as well as building into some very oppressive early laning options, which, I mean, I don't want to say it, but you know what jungler really likes to live with oppressive laning phases?
Yep, it is Kindred, I think.
It is Kindred, absolutely. So there is the opportunity, and yes, there is the risk of obviously dashing through Talia Stones, but they do have a good opportunity here to potentially pick it up. And I did at V3 on Twitter a couple days ago, said, by the way, guys, Kindred's really good. Can you please play it for me? They obviously don't know what it is. But maybe now that they've seen the light from Burning Core, we might get a little bit of hope come through in that one.
Potentially, just to touch on the pick from CGA, they go for the Nautilus, which provides them engage, and well, the 2v2 definitely doesn't feel great, as you said. Zeri Yuumi is a strong matchup, but when you go into the mid game, having that hook is great. Now, Trundle is something that Unica has defaulted on time and time again. It's going to be taken away from him. Let's see what V3 are gonna ban.
There are a lot of bans available to actually take off the table. It's going to be that GP, the first one, which is known historically to be a very good matchup into the Gnar. You kind of farm safe enough, where then you can poke out a little bit with Parlay to trade back. So realistically, the GP scaling is something that's very scary. Makes sense to get rid of that one. There are other potential matchups here, like something along the lines of a Kennen, which could also be a backline diver that get into there. Doesn't feel very Nap-esque, though, to be honest with you. I feel like if you're Nap, you want one of these bruisers. You want someone who's going to be up close, personal, and absolutely smacking the Gnar about. And we saw it the last time these guys played. The Olaf was the pivot that worked towards that. Aside from that, maybe we see the Gwen, but I imagine that Gnar is pretty comfortable to play that Gwen matchup, even if it's not the be-all and end-all of matchups. But as far as CGA's options, it is, as far as their playstyle concerned, they want some sort of fighter in that top side, less so attack.
Let's see what they're going to be going for. You mentioned the Gwen. It is Nap's most played champions at 3 games this split, so maybe just gonna go and pick that up into the Wash. And there is the lock-in. CGA leaving the jungle last. Interesting.
Yeah, potentially wanting to guarantee themselves that counter pick. The Trundle obviously off the table, and with the current bans away, things like the Wukong have managed to make it all the way through the draft. So don't be surprised to see that one get picked up potentially here for Unica. It would be a very solid pick. I think you've also got things like Viego, right, which is very strong too. I don't like Viego as much with their champ, and obviously Poppy also fits the bill. It's going to interrupt that Gwen. It's going to also be good into those matchups we've discussed already with those priority junglers like the Wukong available, because all of them are very dash reliant. So makes sense here for the side of V3. I like what they're picking for themselves. The only issue is actually pulling the trigger as primary engage is going to be a little bit tougher for them.
Yeah, and now we're looking at the mid lane. I would kind of love to see something like
No.
Lissandra come through from UGO.
Don't
I don't know about the Galio.
Oh.
Okay. I mean, look, I'm no color caster, but who the hell is Galio jumping on?
No one, that's the problem. Their best engaging option is that they're going to do Poppy wall stun, Galio ulti over the top, but it just feels very disjointed. And also, Galio is a champion who, in that early to mid game, really needs to be able to get push and roam towards the side lanes to utilize his heroic entrance, but he's not going to be able to get priority in this mid lane matchup. Yes, the jungle mid 2v2 is going to be very much winning for them, or at least it's going to be passable for them. The problem is that yeah, you essentially have a dying mid-jungle core when your whole team is one that's centered around early game aggression and playmaking, which you now can't do into a team that arguably has very strong scaling as well. So I don't like this look, thematically at least, as far as V3 and CGA as teams pair up into each other. I think that now you have the issue of CGA's top lane being able to do pretty much whatever they want, which is what Nap loves to do. You have Kakun on something that they can arguably use as a bit of an armrest to hold themselves up in a matchup where essentially Galio can't do a lot, or you'll just get self-stunned if you try to. And Talia can just go elsewhere, so it feels like now the emphasis in the early game is more on CGA, which is not exactly what I'd like to see.
Yeah, not what the angle that we were taking to this game. In defense of the Galio pick, if Cocoon is going to be roaming with the Weaver's Wall, it's a good champion to follow the roam. You just, ult on your ally, and you can join the fight very early. So I guess I can see the theory behind it, and also if Unica is going to be aggressive, if V3 are going to rally around their engage and look for the picks, yeah, Galio's got decent follow-up, but it is going to be on the V3 actually utilizing their picks, which we've seen a lot in the early parts of the split, not so much recently. And this game, I think everything relies on them being able to go aggressive.
The other issue I have is that as a team, you've now drafted a what I would call a one carry comp. Yes, Galio does provide damage, but he's more based around utility, right?
Mm-hmm.
And historically, when V3 is running a single carry comp with dress code as their AD carry, it doesn't tend to go very well, which does cause me a lot of concern because that side lane matchup isn't going to be particularly fantastic either. So it scares me a little bit in terms of the fact that I feel like if you don't get a lot going in that early to mid game, you are going to start to fall down a bit of a cliff, especially with Talia scaling a lot better than she used to. Having said that, I didn't really think about the idea of using Galio as a counter to the Talia wall. It just worries me potentially that you don't get there in time. So V3, maybe they can still find angles. Maybe they get these opportunities from CGA making mistakes and maybe misplaying. And with this Predator lock-in from UGO, there is the option of just running at Talia, and maybe you can not have to risk getting yourself self-stunned. But with this Unseal Spellbook and the Cleanse maybe coming through later, as well as things like the Ghost being your default summoner, there is going to be, I think, very few windows of opportunity for V3 to do so. So they'll need to sort of orchestrate those themselves. And potentially by doing so, they might be able to find a couple angles to get this early game going.
All right, Blitzcrank's a believer. There we go. It's out there. 56%. I take those odds.
All I'm going to say is that last time when the Kindred came in, these were the odds flipped around that the Kindred still won. So I don't know if Blitzbot might be a little bit drunk on Robo Oil at the moment, but we'll see whether or not that does come fortuitously, as V3 Blitzcrank news can confirmed.
Damn, this is actually all the way in the V3 side. I don't know how this AI works. I'm gonna be honest. But you know what?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure. I imagine that. So here, I'll try and give a rough overview of the lane. Bot side, nothing should happen because Zeri should always have her dash to avoid Primo's hook. unless they hit level 6, in which case then Primo could start to be a bit more advantageous. Mid lane Talia, oh well.
Yeah, there's the hook onto Dresco. Ignite is down. That's a lot of damage. Hitel is going to take a beating as well. And yeah, Hybrid and Primo doing the Nautilus things, going for early trades and winning them.
I love the fact that I'm like, yeah, Zeri has E, so she can never get hit by a hook. Instantly gets gibbed by a hook. Fantastic. I didn't factor that into my equation. Neither did Blitzbot. Anyway, moving away from the bottom lane for a second, we've got this sort of jungle positioning. Both these guys playing sort of into their blue side quadrants now, wanting to path up and down respectively. And I think this is going to somewhat favor the red side of the rift a little bit, because you do obviously get that bot crab guaranteed. You're also potentially looking at diving something like a Zeri Yumi early when there's no barrier available to stall that one out. It is possible. And even if you trade, it's very much beneficial, because then Hybrid gets going. Then once you hit 6, you can scale bot side with your Talia, and everything gets really difficult. Meanwhile, on the top side, it's quite hard to dive this Gwen when the HP threshold is the way it is, and especially with the fact that there isn't any emphasis on Gwen having to dash, particularly to avoid the gank itself when you do have that W to keep yourself alive a little bit longer, when you do have the Q for healing, and the Conqueror gets stacked very fast. So I think that V3 are in a little bit of an awkward spot here, and with the lane as it is, Unica can't really find an angle, so I'm expecting the Poppy probably just recalls, because if there's a duel in the 2v2 top side, it might get messy.
Well, they are going for it. Unica dashing forward, pushes Nap back, Nap down to half health. The Hallowed Mist has timed out, but just pops the ghost, walks away, and I mean, it's a summoner out. It's not a loss for V3.
Yeah, it's not a loss, but I don't even know if Nep really needed to blow that one. Does end up doing so for that safety, so I can understand it, but we'll just teleport back to lane, I imagine, with something like the sort of armor boots, the tubbies, but doesn't actually have to go for it. Instead, can go for the ring for a little bit of an extra sustain with the mana issues that potentially do come into play when you are playing against a non-mana based champion like this Na, who sort of just doesn't need to care about those things. Obviously, has Fury Bar to worry about, but there's always going to be that slight issue that in a sustained matchup in those early stages, you are going to be using more resources than he will. So maybe that's the idea for that one, but it does mean now that Washidai can come back with a slightly better scaling buy of that cull, and we see a little bit of a farming mentality, should we say, come through in the top side.
Absolutely. Even Washidai wasn't really setting up the lane, perfectly to gank. At the end of the day, Nap was close enough to the tower that he could just walk away, and yeah, Unica now in the bot side. We'll see if he's ever going to revisit that top lane, because it is something that we have seen from Unica a few times this split, where he will just gank a lane, get a summoner, and that's the end of the story.
Yeah, there is sort of the idea that if you go to a lane once and you get a sum, you really need to punish that cooldown, but it's not exactly been on the cards as such here for the side of E3. What could be on the cards, though, is this roaming potentially now from the Galio. Look at the buy. Instantly rushing those Merc Treads, knows that they want that Predator to be as strong as possible, as well as a little bit of MR to help with the lane itself. It will be okay against some of these champs, but I actually think that overall, the Tarvis would have been a little bit better, but it's besides the point. Will struggle a bit for mana, though, because there is no Sapphire Crystal, which obviously Kakon doesn't have to care as much about, having that tier come through. I'm a bit worried.
Yeah, heavy trading happening in the top side. Ultimate's being traded. Washidai is very low. Unica is up here as well. And Nap just pushed towards the star and says, thank you very much. I will take the escape. And that was anticlimactic.
Yeah, but is the flash blown there for Washidai, which is a massive cooldown to be invested when your Wukong is pre-6 bot. Ooh, good dash. Because obviously Kassin can now go to that top side when he does hit level 6, engage onto the Gnar. Maybe you can get time your ulti to interrupt the hop, and then Washidai just dies. There's nothing really that can be done at that point. So might look to do this dragon, reset, clear out those top camps, and that will probably give Kassin around level 6 mark given XP values. So he is now on the cards to make a really strong proactive play, and off the back of that, you maybe transition it into Herald Vision, and then the game starts to snowball from there. So CGA, they have a potential window of opportunity opening up thanks to that play from Nap in the top side.
Yeah, they get themselves the dragon now, push in the bot lane as well. And just look at the AD carries. Hybrid almost at 20. Well, it's more like 15 right now. CS ahead, has got the Noon Quiver, has got the Cold. Philios is going exactly according to plan, as Kassin will be trying to steal that red buff. Unica spots it out, but Cocoon is around. As that's going to be the hook connecting onto Hetel in the bot lane. That Yumi is a very squishy champion. Ignite last tick will not be enough. Hitel survives, with both summoners burned by the Yuumi.
Yeah, and honestly, that just screams out it's a dive angle now potentially for CGA. They've opened up a lot of windows of opportunity for themselves. They can go top side, they can go bot side. Summoners blown across the board. V3, you're not finding exactly that early game that you really wanted to as a team stylistically, but maybe there is that scaling. Blitzbot had the hopium, so we'll see if that can come out as another hook. It's very, very scary, isn't it?
Yeah, something just to touch on. We had a very slow early game. Did Primo just cancel the animation of the hook right there? Or was it a spectator bug?
I don't think so. I think that was...
Okay.
If so, I'm not sure if it was intentional or not, because I don't feel like Primo did. I could be wrong. My eyes might be deceiving me. However, what we're not being deceived about is the fact that V3, they're the ones that seem to want to play with this Herald. They've already moved their Galio up to potentially cover or look for a play onto Nat, but with their bottom side, the Zeri just going straight to lane, Yuumi going to pilot, and you have to feel like with both these supports roaming up, potentially, I would rather have the Nautilus at this point in the game specifically, and with the Weaver's Wall available to wall out members of V3, CGA, they get themselves this priority ahead of time. They've already moved their support up, and the vision control is now being established and squeezed out here against V3 as Shadai is going to get potentially roamed on, but that pink wall can spot him out.
Yeah, and Herald started by CGA. I don't really think V3 can contest. In fact, Unica will be moving back down towards the bot lane. So it is a free Herald picked up by CGA. No real gold lead to speak of just yet, but they are getting all the objectives on the map.
Yeah, and it does mean at the very least that the gold influx will come quite largely, should we say, through this Rift Herald. Because obviously, when you get that one, you can then get yourself several hundred gold worth of plate money, realistically, as long as you don't make the mistake of either one, not defending it, which we have seen in the LJL before, or two, dropping it too late, which we've also seen before. But that won't be an option this time around, so because obviously with the Herald Spawn Timer, you either don't place it or you're probably going to get the plates. Having said that, though, even though it's been a quiet early game, Unica has been able to farm up a little bit of a storm in that jungle position, but it's been had been somewhat counteracted in the bottom side. However, I want to say credit where credit's due. Deskcode has managed to farm back into it a little bit. It's only down sort of one wave instead of the 2 or 3, which it was a minute ago. So great stuff there from the V3 to carry to at least catch up somewhat. And in this isolated situation, it seems like the Poppy has farmed up well. Problem is that I think Poppy, after one item in the jungle, isn't doing that much in terms of itemization because you just don't make enough money. The jungle isn't exactly a financial... it's not Wall Street. There is some issues there. Or actually, maybe it is like Wall Street in different ways. But yeah, it starts to have some issues after sort of 1 or 2 item mark, which is really a mark of the Poppy needing to find more once we do see this first item come through.
Yeah, Herald utilization is the next place I'm looking at, though, for CGA to try and get back, because we look at the scoreboard, V3 actually in just under 1,000 gold lead right now, so they've used the fact that CGA rotated for this Herald and committed multiple members to be like, yeah, we're just going to farm up, we're going to catch up ever so slightly, and now sitting with the gold lead, but the Herald is the trap card for CGA. If they use it well, can win them the mid game. Use it poorly, and... well, you're giving V3 time to scale, which isn't exactly something they will be unhappy with.
Yeah, I mean, there is definitely good scaling. You do have those options if the game goes a little bit later. I think that both teams have relatively good scaling, though, because we've seen the value of Mrs. Immunity in that top side in some previous games. And my word, she's immune to taking damage when she reaches a certain point. As well as obviously you have Aphelios and Clea who scale pretty well too, but you can't undervalue a Zeri Yuumi. The question for me is whether or not CGA in those later stages will be able to find access to dress code with this much defense. It's going to be quite the task, I think. But if the Zeri can pump out the damage, there's definitely a late game here for V3 too. I just feel like this topside matchup will start to be a problem in the side lane if nothing is able to happen. And with this rotation coming to the mid lane, they're wanting to break this tower open pretty early. And it just seems like, unfortunately, V3, they're a bit late to the party. They're going to suffer the crash in the mid lane. They're going to have to kill the Herald, which means that they're not first now for the Dragon. And with that stacking up, it would be Drake number 2 for CGA if they can start it. However, Washidai doesn't have the teleport available, so it would potentially be a 5 versus 4 if Nat backs up and TPs to one of the towers.
Yeah, very precarious position for V3, especially if you look at Nap. He is far
Oh.
away. That's the keeper's verdict. Use already final chapter now as well. And Unico will steal the dragon. Well played by V3. And they walk away as well unscathed.
Fantastic, V3, they understand their limit, they don't push too far, and it's very, very rare in the LJL, I feel, that we see a team go, okay, we're playing for the objective, and then we're out. That's it. We don't need to do more. They don't push too hard, and it's something that we don't see often from V3, but it works out fantastically. They get themselves the objective thanks to a great steal from Unica, and while the keeper's verdict only hits 1, the engaged tools don't come through for CGA crucially, so they're able to get in, they get out like thieves in the night, and they'll take themselves a little bit of gold, and that nice little bit of stacking up into their back pocket.
And you deny the early soul for CGA with that as well. So all in all, pretty big play here for V3. The gold still sitting within 1k in the favor of V3. My question is, do V3 need to be perhaps more proactive in the coming minutes? Because we touched on scaling, CGA are happy to scale, so are V3, but I got kind of a hint that perhaps CGA late game is going to be easier to execute.
I would say that they would like to be more proactive. The issue comes in the form of how you find it. Because looking across the board, Talia is always going to have summoners available because of Spellbook. Bot side, the only thing you've blown so far is Primo's Flash, and that's realistically not the biggest deal in the world. And top side, Nap has managed to get that Ghost back up. So even if you go to a lane, you don't have fantastic setup tools across the board to really start anything. So you're very much reliant on the opposition making mistakes or just ganking and re-ganking, which is something that obviously costs Unica a lot of time. So the Poppy instead electing to farm up, which is not necessarily the wrong choice. It just creates this this difficulty, shall we say, in making that first play happen. Instead, V3 I think might gain more advantage from counter ganking and from playing into CGA's advantages. But the problem is that CGA, their scaling isn't bad, so they don't need to force plays if they don't want to. Which I think is what's causing this dynamic of the game is quote unquote slow. It's more like no one feels comfortable about making something happen first because V3 kind of can't and CGA don't have to. So we're in a bit of a lull state because of that.
Yeah, and even when CGA made plays, they have been set up really well. And despite the Dragon ultimately going to V3, it was still a good setup on the Drake, and CGA didn't lose any kills. So they've been playing it very carefully. The Mythics now picked up on everyone, apart from the Gwen Nap, still yet to get that Riftmaker. And just sending the AD carries mid lane. It's the standard LJL mid-game, 50 mids in, still yet to get a kill.
It's slow but surely going to be ramping up. It's like a fine wine, you see, because we're scaling we're scaling it by 10 years, and then at that point, it's going to be absolutely delicious when we do get that first blood, because I'm sure it won't just be one, it'll be a couple. And with the Herald being started up, V3 now, the first one's objective, they have the Poppycopter available to maybe knock Kassin flying for 6.
There's the Weavers. Whoa! It catches V3 over the Cyclone for the knockouts as well. UGO, he picks up the first blood, but falls down very shortly, and the damage from CGA maybe isn't exactly as big as I expected. 1-for-1 at the end of the day.
Yeah, and the problem is that so many members of V3 were able to jump out. I think it was Wallop and the Gnar coming through there from Washide and then jumping over the wall. Dresscode was able to slide and glide straight over that one pretty easily, like a little bit of an ice skating angle there, and carries the Yuumi. So it's only really the Poppy that can be maintained, and even then, it doesn't do much. So let's just look at this one again. I believe the V3 were the ones able to secure the Herald off the back of it, but Primo finds a nice hook here onto Yuji, ends up getting caught out on the Weaver's Pool. It looks so good, combo with the Cyclone, but there's 2 out already. Third one, Poppy dashes over. So does the Gnar as well. It's only going to catch onto Yuji because of the amount of mobility available. On top of that, there's so much damage being pumped out from Dresscode on the backside of the fight too. The Kassin ends up going down too. It's a 1-for-1 as well as going to be that Herald over to V3 plus First Blood. They actually end up being in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, this is a pretty damn good fight for V3. That being said, Cocoon's flank was scary there. If you do that later on in the game where Kassin does damage, where the wombo combo can stack through, that is a devastating fight for V3. So honestly, I'm impressed right now with Cocoon's positioning in that team fight. Let's see if he can do it later on in the game.
I mean, you can't ask for that much more from Atelier. That's exactly what you need. You find a wall that essentially blocks everyone off and does force a really horrid looking fight. The problem is that it's about blowing cooldowns too. I think the Primo engage was nice, but you're only finding it onto kind of the wrong person. We need to blow up dress codes, or at the very least force the dash out of this Zeri, and then you can wall them off, and that's the killing blow. Unfortunately, it didn't come through that time, but you are still showing a little bit of that knowledge, a little bit of comfort, which is something that I think that Cocoon has definitely struggled with a bit throughout this split so far. Hasn't been the most comfortable in those early stages, and whilst the team fighting has been okay, it felt like there was some nerves creeping in, and perhaps now starting to calm down and starting to feel a little bit more comfortable within this CGA roster.
Absolutely, and talking about the developments on the map, we have a bot side event from CGA. Herald is going to be a stop lane. That tier 2 is going down. I don't think Nap can do a whole lot to prevent that. He is going to try and fight Unica. Alright, it's just the tier 2 tower, no charge onto the inhib. So all things considered, V3 gets some value, but it's not the most insane Herald in the world.
Yeah, it's not terrible for V3 though. The only issue is that it does create a unfortunate dynamic now where what Nap can do is you can allow this wave to push in. You can sit at your inhib tower, you can freeze the wave, and Nar can't do anything. Because in that 1v1, the Gwen is actually winning right now. So it does actually create a bit of an awkward spot. Luckily, freezing is kind of illegal in terms of the fact that no one does it, so it should be fine. But it does create a bit of an unfortunate situation where if Nap was willing to do so, the game actually really starts to fall apart there, because you're forced then to try and send Nar mid, and then you're creating a dynamic of, hey, we have Nar Galio, but we can't dive Talia because Talia has rocks, and she also has the ability to be ranged, so that kind of sucks. And she can wave clear for days, so nothing's happening. And then in a neutral state where your Nar is being perma-froze on, then you obviously start to lose out pretty hard. So there was that opportunity now being created. Luckily, CGA not utilizing that window appropriately, and instead they're just trying to group up around this bottom side, but the dragon isn't going to spawn for a little while yet, so perhaps they're looking to make good utilization of this Talia and try and find picks, but it might be a bit difficult.
Yeah, the Baron is going to spawn in 15, but I don't expect either of the teams to be looking at that immediately, so for the next few minutes the available objectives are going to be pretty scarce. Now, Unica, together with Etel, were trying to do a bit of a loop around on Cocoon, but they were spotted out, and Cocoon, as we said, you're at Talia, you're ranged, you can just stay back and it doesn't hurt you too much. Collector, picked up by Hybrid, the Aphilio sitting on 2 items. That's going to be important for the fights to come.
So I was a little bit concerned there, because I thought they might be trying to dive it, but with the Talia still having the flash available, I think it's quite hard to gank Cocoon here, because you don't have a great primary CC. I mean, your opener is Yuumi R, and Poppy maybe dashes on, but if the dash gets flashed, then the dive starts to fall apart. But they don't go for it, they bail out in the end, even though there's no Renata, the bailout still comes through, and now V3, it feels like we're in that moment of time where they want to find something, they're struggling for it, because Sin might be able to find something topside. However, Heroic Entrance might be used as an exit tool.
Everfrost finds the root, and Yu-Gi-Oh's tower instead is going to go down. He's going to go golden. The rest of V3 are coming in to the rescue. That is the flash away shield of Duran. It's going to be charged up. Yu-Gi-Oh so incredibly low, and that is now finding the kill. Unica now, oh hell, he got sniped by that hook, and that is the second kill picked up by CGA. That's going to be the calls for the Baron from the looks of it. The CGA, they might just blow the game wide open now.
Get down, Mr. President, says Hatel as he bodyguards to jump in front of Unica, but it's just a little bit silly there coming through from Yu-Gi-Oh. Has the ability to just dash out that one, and Weaver's Wall now going to be dropped here by Cocoon as well to just seal off the jungler, prevent that steal attempt from coming through, and it's a really nice one now. It means that the Baron's going to get very, very low. No one of V3 can really contest in time. I love the usage of this Talia. It looks so clean.
Yeah, and now with the Baron buff as well, we're gonna see how it all started. I don't think Yu-Gi-Oh even expected, well, I for one didn't, this tower to go down this incredibly fast.
Well, I'm just a bit confused as well, because what you can do here as Yu-Gi-Oh is you could just ulti to force the Cyclone maybe to come out of the Wukong, but it's not even potentially an opportunity there, but instead just waits for the tower. The interrupt comes through on that teleport as well, so maybe Nar can come and help out, so nice stuff there from Cocoon, but The Cyclone is there, Yuji goes down, and now maybe you were wanting to heal up your Poppy, but the hook comes through. But crucially, it was actually the Cyclone that came in with that interrupt first. So great stuff there from the side of Kasin to end up interrupting that one. And now V3, they're playing against this Baron buff, and with the Dragon spawning in 30 seconds, it's going to be a really tough contest.
The items are starting to get stacked up against them. 2 Void Staff. You've got the BF Sword on the Hybrid, and Kasin now, he's potentially caught out from the rest of the team. Unica is there with the steadfast presence. There is the push as well. Teleport is being channeled right now. Yuji is standing strong in the front line. Kasin, so incredible. Watch it die. Trying to flash in to finish him off, but he can't quite do it. Heroes just will keep him alive for the time being, and the fight is absolute chaos. Kasin is going to go down. Dresscode is still untouched in the backside. Primo is there, but Hybrid is now going to be hitting free onto Unica, and V3, they're starting to fall. Double kill is picked up by Dreskel, but that is all he can do, as 4 members of V3 will fall. Only 2 kills back onto CGA, and they're going to take the Dragon and put themselves on this whole point.
Yeah, crucially, the final hook there from Primo, the dying act of the Nautilus hooks in this area, means that the damage can come through very, very easily from the other members of CGA, and they're able to clean up the fight very, very quickly. Here's the problem, though, is that we utilize the Mega Gnar a bit too early there from Washidai. If we look at the actual play, it's a great initiation here from Unica. Utilizes the steadfast presence to interrupt Kasin's W dash, and off the back of that, it looks so nice, but Gnar loses so much damage when you go into Mega. Goes Mega immediately, which means that now you don't have the damage to actually kill off this Wukong, so Kasin is able to get out, and now Washidai is the target, ends up getting blown up pretty quickly and is very, very low, and now Yuchio on the backside forces himself into a really awkward spot now, and unfortunately, look at dress code here. The positioning looks great, doesn't use that left click though to kill off Primo, and gets hooked, as well as the depth charge, and it's just the nuclear option gets activated by CGA to kill off the AD carry.
Yeah, there's so much zoning in that fight from Cocoon and Primo, which means that Dresco really struggles to find the damage, and then once Hybrid was enabled to hit for free, I mean, it's a back then 2-item Aphelios. Now it's a 3-item Aphelios with an Infinity Edge. V3, you're not winning a fight if Hybrid can hit you.
Yet at this point, I feel like if you're a V3 fan, you just have to take a step back. You have to hope that you can get to 3 items on your Zeri, and then maybe the damage starts to come through a little bit more because she spikes so hard at that point in the game. But look at the gold difference between the AD carries. It's 2k there already. Arguably one of the bigger differences here among sort of the actual money of each. And with the Poppycopter being put onto that smaller cooldown, they can't exactly dissuade this charge of the members. Now able to free hit his Hybrid with all the cooldowns being blown, and the tower is going to slowly but surely fall, even with no Baron to actually do the work.
Yeah, V3 will clear the wave, and the tower will stand a few more seconds. But the push is coming through from CGA. They have secured themselves a 5,500 gold lead. The mid game has been cleaned by them, it has to be said, and they're trying to slowly finish it off. Weaver's wall from Cocoon. V3 are now stuck in a tough position. Dresscode will hop over the wall. Unica, though, stack in the front line, and Hybrid will take him down. Washidai trying to stand guard. Dresscode dived on by Kasin, and he can't hit any of the priority targets at all. Triple kill picked up by Hybrid. Nap is going to take down Dresscode. That's a clean ace for CJ with a quadra for their ADC.
Yeah, and they could even look to end the game here, potentially. The death timers aren't the longest, but with a wave already there and the 5 members alive, they can hit it really, really quick. You've only got Unica. Maybe you can utilize the Keep's Verdict to knock them away. Maybe that way you can stall, but that won't work on Gwen. It'll only work on the others, because Gwen is immune. However, the towers are falling really, really fast. 5 seconds on Unica.
I think the game's over. The Nexus is open. CGA... it's been slow to get there, but the mid game's been all them, and they will take the win over V3, putting them down 2-0 and 34.
And I don't understand several parts here, but we just saw the slow but steady win here for CGA. The Weaver's Walls were fantastic here from Cocoon. Really started to show up a lot more throughout this one, so I'm really impressed with what I got to see this time around. V3, I don't understand what they're trying to do. And unfortunately, it felt like they didn't want to do anything at all.
It kind of did. I mean, from the draft, we got this feeling that something's wrong here. The engage just didn't really feel like it was going to be enough. And they tried a few times, but at the Dragon, when it didn't work, you just look at their team comp and you're wondering, what are you even trying to do? And the answer is not a lot. They didn't get the early game. They didn't get the engages in the mid game. And yeah, there was a time where they were heading gold because they were just able to farm while CGA was getting objectives. But that doesn't win you games.
The issue I think that they had the most is that Unico was going around trying to look for plays, but you have no crowd control in any of your lanes pre-6, essentially. And I know that Galio obviously does, but it's irrelevant against Talia because you can't use it. I also don't think I saw Predator popped once the entire game, so I don't even know if that room was utilized, which is an interesting one. I'd need to actually get a check back on that if someone ever wants to go through the VOD and tell me. That'd be amazing. But it didn't feel like, to me, I mean, I'm sure that we'll do a breakdown later on, but I feel like this Galio pick was just not the one for me.
Yeah, we will do, and I believe we're going to go into the break, and then we'll bring Infinite Dodge to talk about the match and how V3 took another loss.
I love the fact the shading is just slightly off as well. It's just slightly the wrong color. Also, what no one is gonna know but us is that feeling of, okay, if we laugh, we're losing our esports careers, so we've got to try and keep it in, which is the hardest thing to do. Thanks, Chris. I appreciate that.
I'm about to cry. I found a stash of V3 Hopium. It just didn't help.
Is it
Oh no!
I don't know. I just no. It hurts. It hurts.
Oh man, yeah, that was a rough one. Even as far as V3 games go, that was a rough one. As we,
yeah, that ain't it, guys. This is I'm not gonna lie. If that was the draft, I'd feel way better about it, though. I would be very much pleased if that's what I saw. But instead,
bring it back. It was the legendary game where Sengoku didn't die once against DFM in day one. So hey, if anyone's watching and you don't remember that game, day one, it's on YouTube. Game 4, bit of a banger. Go watch it.
Yeah, indeed it was. That's the game that leaves those two tied at the top of the standings for now. So we got to stop talking about the teams we want to watch play each other again, though, and talk a little bit more about V3 here. Breaking it on down, how it all went, starting with the draft. Something that In a way I've been advocating for was the Yu-Gi-Oh return to the Galio because he's so good at it. The problem is it didn't fit this draft, guys, and you just have no carry potential when you don't put Yu-Gi-Oh on something like those champions that got banned out, like Swain and Zoe. Is that where it all went wrong here, Kashka?
I feel like it went wrong on the last pick. I even said this in draft. I feel like I would have wanted to see something like Lysandra because honestly, he didn't look too bad with the engages some of the time on this champion, and it would actually provide the primary engages team needs. But alas, it was the Galio pick without anyone who can reliably pick out the Talia, and well, we saw the result of that.
Yeah, that we did. Recollect, we've sort of beaten this horse to death, but I think there's a few more good hits left in the tank. Draft. Besides the Galio, anything that really jumps out to you where V3 shot themselves in the foot in terms of not getting advantages they could have.
Yeah, so there's three things that jump out at me. The first thing is I will just hit Galio one more time. I'm sorry. In this region, if you don't play Camille, you don't play Galio. That's all. That's all. Nothing else. That's what we need to know. I don't care what the rest of the comp is. I know there are other champs you can play with it. I don't think that people are functioning well enough with Galio and anything except Camille because it's so easy to execute. If it's not Camille, I'm not saying it. The second thing is that I don't think that Gwen should have been allowed through. It was like the obvious pick that was going to come through here for Nap, and it was that this guy has played the most Gwen. It's a decent matchup to Nar. You can play it safely, and Nar can't really punish you, which means that you can't play through topside, which means if you're playing a roaming champion, you're not doing anything with your roaming champion. So again, that doesn't really work correctly. The third is that if you're going to play this Poppy, there is obviously, it is fine. It's very strong. But I'm a Kindred lover, so I'm going to say the Kindred is an option here too, right? And it makes sense. I just don't like the idea of leaving dress code on a single carry comp. So if you're going to play this utility mid, which is fine, I don't mind it, if you draft around it properly, you have to have damage coming from somewhere else, because in the nicest way, I don't trust dress code to carry against most LJL teams. That's maybe that's a hot take, maybe that's offensive. That's just how I feel. I feel like this guy is fine as a player who can exist. I want. There are some players that you have in a composition, and you just have them there, and that's it. They do nothing, and that's okay. That's all you need. You just need them to not int the game, and you play through everyone else, and that's okay. That's what I think that this team needs to do. I don't see dress code outperforming 6 out of 8 AD carries in the LJL, and that's just my take on it, and that's okay. I just think that this team can't play single carry comp through AD. Or just in general, it's just not something that fits them. They need at least 2 carries, and they don't have it here. And those are the 3 biggest mistakes I think V3 made in this draft.
Yeah, it's not just about the draft, right? It's about the execution. And if we could bring in the clips, I have something here I'd like to call a tale of 2 dragon fights. So this is probably V3's shining moment here, right, when they came in on this first dragon fight. And what made their composition work here, and what did they execute on well?
I mean, the Keeper's verdict to get away Cocoon as one of the big damage dealers definitely is a great start, and there is not too much in terms of hard CC once that depth charge was blown. So honestly, just go and take the Drake, get out. That is what V3 would have had to keep doing. The problem is, as you get later on in the game, CGA are the ones that actually do want to fight you quite hard.
There is one thing, if I can possibly see this replay one more time, and it's the fact that I actually think there was an opportunity for CGA to take this fight, and the key factor in my thought of that is that Kassin has flash and ulti both available, and if you watch the bottom part of this fight here, look at dress code's positioning and look at Unica near the end of the fight, I think that there is an opportunity here to maybe look for a multi-man engage onto them right here, where maybe you can catch both of the carries as well as this Yumi. Cocoon is coming back with Weaver's Wall. Maybe there's an angle there, but it is that Keeper's Verdict that maybe makes Kassin a little bit afraid of that, option. It is still opting into a temporary 3 versus 4, angle, but there are cooldowns being blown. So I wonder if maybe there was an opportunity there for CGA and it just wasn't utilized correctly. But in the later fights, they weren't gun shy. They just went for the throats for the rest of it.
Yeah, no, they definitely broke the back of V3. I mean, this game was very slow and methodical in the early, which we said was going to be a bad sign for V3 because the one place where they consistently are at their best is pre-15, and that's typically where CGA tend to make the most oopsies, because in particular can have some head scratchers sometimes. And when it came to that, like I think I said it in chat, 17 minutes dead even did not bode well, and it was slow, methodical, very close, and then all of a sudden, post 20, it exploded in the favor of Crest Gaming Act. And to me, this is really where it started to all go wrong. Recollect.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It started to fall apart because number one, I think that the Weaver's Walls were used way better. Obviously, not so much in this replay, but it felt like it could really scale into those ones quite effectively. And the target focus just isn't great here from V3. It feels like there's a bit of a solo queue controversial one at a time strat where everyone is sort of off on their own sort of battlegrounds. And that's not something that's really going to work that well for you because when you have champions like Galio, you're very much reliant on landing those multi-man taunts to have great value as a champion because in a free hitting match, Talia is going to deal more damage than a Galio if given that chance to just hit one at a time. It's just what the champion is functionally better at doing. And whilst both AD carries can function in team fights fine, it's going to take Zeri a little bit longer to dish out damage. It doesn't have the same utility that maybe an Aphelios does have if you're not able to land those Ws for key chunks. So it just seems a little bit harder to find those sort of fights when we create these isolated sort of skirmishes and less so the big AoE, oh, they're all dead. It's a faker shockwave moment, like that kind of situation.
Yeah.
It's it's harder.
When it's all split up, it's definitely difficult, and difficult it will remain here for V3. We said this is their best chance to pick up a win in the summer split, and it has now passed them by, not with a roar of defiance, but with a whimper. They go down once again, 0-13, 0-34 on the year. Starting to run out of hopium, but maybe we can find some reasons to see it again on Sunday. But we have a lot more amazing games coming up your way after a short break. So stay tuned. We will return as we get ready for game number 2.